Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have here with me Dr. Michel Goldman.
Good
Dr. Michel
morning.
Goldman is a professor of immunology and pharmacotherapy at ULB, where he is also the founder of the Institute of Interdisciplinary Innovation in Healthcare. He's also the chief editor of Frontiers in Medicine. Michel was the first executive director of the Innovative Medicines Initiative and has received various scientific awards over the years. Good morning, Michel.
Good morning.
Michel, thank you so much for joining me here today, especially in these uncertain times, as we say.
My pleasure.
All right, before we start off, do you have any opening remarks?
Well, my only remark is that I think that the activities that you are organizing are extremely important. Obviously, to work virtually is not the same that to meet people in person, but I think that, communication, sharing experience, sharing knowledge, and trying to bring the most relevant and science-based information to a wider audience is something extremely important. This is what my institute is trying to do, and I'm happy to share this endeavor with you.
Thank you once again. It's an honor to have you on Future Health Virtual. Michel, first off, I'd just like to ask, is the healthcare industry really taking full advantage of academia in these days, especially?
Well, full advantage, it's difficult to say. But when you think about COVID-19, it has been remarkable to see how fast the scientific community has been in identifying the virus, sharing information about its genome, which allow indeed both in academia, in biotechs, and also big pharma to be so rapid in developing the new diagnostic and now the vaccines to address the pandemic. So can we do it better? For sure, but I think that it depends not only on industry, it also depends on academia. As you know, academia and industry are driven by different modus operandi. I would say in academia, it's very important to publish, to have your individual contribution and knowledge, whereas in industry, what is the main performance indicators is indeed the product, is to deliver and to deliver as a team most often. So I think that on one hand, academia has to learn to work more as a team, but industry has also to learn perhaps to respect more what makes academia so strong, which is imagination, which is creation, and this requires some, I would say, freedom to operate. And those two worlds are different, but they should really act in synergy, which is exactly what they are doing. And I think that industry has made huge efforts in understanding better and trying to get the most from academia. And actually industry, in terms of collaboration, at least what they are doing now with the COVID-19, is quite remarkable. I just heard yesterday that several major pharmas will share very precious information about anti-COVID-19 antibodies to make these promising tools reaching the patients as rapidly as possible. So we are improving. You can always do better, but I think that so far we succeed to combine, I would say, what you need in terms of imagination to discover and what you need to make the discoveries reaching society, citizens, and patients. And I think that the public money which is spent and which is usually spent, as you know, both in the US and Europe, should really foster those collaboration. And I think that this effort is ongoing.
Great, thank you. I absolutely agree with you. And I really appreciate all these collaborations across the world, and I think it's helping everybody. Regarding that topic, how do you ensure that academic discoveries reach citizens in a timely manner?
Well, that's a challenge because you have obviously to convince first uh, investors, I would say, before to convince industry that what you have discovered has value, and then investors will propose the best strategy, which could be to create first a spin-off company or to rapidly negotiate license agreement with a larger company. So I think it's important to have in the environment, in the ecosystems, investors ready to take risk. Investors mean private investors, business angels, but also public investors. And for example, the European Investment Bank is now playing to some extent this role. I think it's also very important that academia understands that they are supported by public funds. They should obviously have their share, their piece of the cake, but they should also be reasonable. It's not only industry which should be reasonable in terms of pricing the final products, it's also academia to be reasonable when they negotiate their transfer agreements.
Thank you for that. And back to some of the innovations that came out of academia. Maybe this has a lot to do with COVID-19, but what would you say is the role of universities and academia in the entire startup ecosystem with all these technologies?
Well, the role is triple. First, you have to educate. You have to educate the professionals who at the end will work in hospitals or in industry. But you have also an important role in terms of educating the wider audience. For example, in our institute, we pay special attention to educate the young generation, people children even in primary schools about the importance of vaccines, why we have to use quarantine to fight pandemics and things like that. I think it's very important that even kids understand that, and this is feasible. Obviously, it's also about education, the wider public, which is so important, especially when you think about vaccines, which will be essential weapons in the war against COVID-19, all these anti-vax movements. And it's very important that indeed we explain that what is done both in academia and industry is evidence-based. That's very important. Not always easy because, as you know, some politicians, especially in the US, sometimes have strong statements which are not really science-based. So, and this makes our lives sometimes more difficult. So it's education first. Second is obviously research. So we have to maintain a very active research activities within the universities. And then the third role is indeed to make sure each time you make a discovery, your duty is indeed to do whatever you can to translate the discovery towards for the benefit of society and patients. And for this, it's important to collaborate not only with industry, but also with other key stakeholders, patients, organizations, for example, and regulatory agencies. I think that what we will see more and more in coming months is the key role of agencies in bringing and approving new products which originate in academia. This is a new science. It's regulatory science. And I think that it's important that academia pay much more attention to this, as well as to the ethical aspects of clinical investigations. And obviously, there is a lot of responsibility within academic hospitals. So universities, academia must be very active in making sure that trials are organized the right way and deliver meaningful results as rapidly as possible. And there we can do better.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman, for that. Perhaps to connect this conversation to the current situation with COVID-19, how has the COVID-19 situation impacted all of these processes, maybe compared to last year?
Well, you know, it's a real revolution which is ongoing. You know, obviously the pressure is terrible. The pressure first of patients, of society, of politicians, the pressure on academia, on industry, please deliver as rapidly as possible a useful product, and you have all these negotiations. And you know, this really changed the landscape and changed the responsibilities of everyone to make sure that to go faster doesn't mean that we take unreasonable risks and we expose our populations to new medicines which are not efficient or unsafe. So that's a revolution, because everyone which has an interest in seeing, you know, the product reaching the market as rapidly as possible, at the same time took seriously its responsibility. And that's a fine line. It's a delicate balance. And again, I think it's there that regulatory agencies, you know, patient advocacy are so important. But I think that indeed things have changed quite dramatically, especially in terms of speed. Now, what has not been changed sufficiently is the way clinical trials are done. In the first waves of the pandemic, we still saw much too many trials, small trials, which did not deliver meaningful results. And this is the responsibility of all stakeholders, including academia. I think that, you know, we have lost many lives, and lost lives should at least contribute to improve scientific knowledge and to help to design new medicines. And I'm afraid that we lost many opportunities there. Obviously, some large trials still deliver, you know, the results of the UK trials about dexamethasone, and there are other trials which provide important information about remdesivir. But by and large, we should do much better, and I really hope, and that's ongoing, that with vaccines, which we will be more efficient to make sure that every individual enrolled in a trial indeed helps for the common good.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Before we end off, do you have any closing remarks, perhaps on the current situation of COVID-19? Perhaps locally, how are things going, and any news you can share?
What I would like to say is that it's indeed critical to observe the measures which have been found for years, probably 1 century, to be efficient to fight pandemics, which, as you know, is to isolate the people who are infected, whether they have symptoms or not, and asymptomatic people are very important in spreading the virus. So that's point number one. Then if you do that, you have obviously to identify those people through tracing, and you have to test them. But for the wider audience, what's very important is that to avoid to be infected and to prevent transmission, and again, this is known for years and years, you have to observe this social distancing, the hygiene, especially of the hands, and mask wearing. This is well known now that to wear a mask is important not only to protect the others, but also there is good evidence now that you protect yourself. And that if you become infected while you have a mask, you have a better chance to have only a mild disease, or perhaps even no symptoms at all. Having said all this, and again, all this is important, my conviction is that the only real perspective that we have to come out of all this is indeed pharmaceutical products. So that's why industry is so important. Today we focus on vaccines. So I will not comment more on vaccine. Obviously we need vaccines. But the point I think which is not sufficiently made, especially in Europe, is the opportunities offered by virus-specific antibodies, immunotherapy against the virus. And actually the United States put a lot of efforts in that. I think that we should do more in Europe. This is very well known. It's so-called passive immunotherapy. It allows to treat and to have action even in individuals who are less prone to respond to vaccines. For example, old people with some disease, they will not respond so well to vaccines. And if you can immediately treat them with antibodies that neutralize the virus, you can have an important action. And this is really what we try to promote now in Europe in parallel to vaccines, knowing that the production of those products is a challenge, as well as the economics. Obviously, prices of antibodies are usually high in other fields, and we will have to find economic models to make sure that those promising products can be made accessible to everyone.
Thank you very much for that. We've had Dr. Michel Goldman here today, and I couldn't be more excited to also announce that Dr. Michel Goldman will be attending the Future of Health Hybrid Summit on October 19th and 20th, depending on the situation, of course, whether he'll be attending virtually or live. We'd hope.
I hope very much to be with us. To be with you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Michel, once again. And
my pleasure.
I absolutely look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, and good luck for all your meetings. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.